Well, my name is Ruben. My complete name is Recep Franco. I was born in Mexico. I was born in the northern city of Tijuana. My university in arts, I enrolled in the local university in the Faculty of Arts. I was very interested in the philosophy of art, the motivation of art, the human motivation of art. And by this aspect of studying the history of art, I found in the history books some examples that I have never seen before, because in the history books, usually we just see the history of art in Europe and other parts of small city-states such as Egypt, and mainly that's it. Egypt, Rome, Greece, and then France, Germany, England, and then it goes to the United States. So for this aspect, when we went through and we went deeply into the general aspects of art and culture in the world, I was exposed to Islamic art. And by this first encounter, I was surprised to see that in history books and in art books, they had a small space for this new thing to me, that it was Islamic art. I was so amazed of how different it was and how strikingly beautiful it was in some sort of simple way. So by myself, I started investigating what was Islam. I have never heard before so many things about Islam. I've only heard 2 or 3 words, which were Muslim and maybe the Prophet Muhammad, but I had never before even heard much of Islam before. So this was the first encounter I had with the religion of Islam. And myself, I started investigating what was Islam, what was it based on. I found out that one of the principal cores of Islam is the Quran, and I started investigating what was the Quran, when was it brought, how or why was the primary aspect of Islam to use geometry. I was so amazed that the basic patterns or the basic structure of Islamic art is to use geometry. So I started investigating this, and it took me 1 year approximately to going back and forth, reading on the free time, reading on the daily aspects of morning, night, and day, to take more of this information. I then, by the process of asking and looking in the internet, I then went to a local community center of Islamic teachings, and they gave me a Quran in Spanish and in Arabic, but I never really started to read it right away. I felt like I was taking my time in investigating what was Islamic art. And by this process, I want to highlight that in the internet there is much wrong information, and there is much information that wants to lead away from people who are curious about what Islam is and to become a Muslim. So I would feel that this information, whether it was saying bad things about the Prophet, about Islam, about the religion itself, I would feel something wrong, and I would not take for granted, I would not take for sure. I would say to myself, there is something else, and I would just leave it, and then again, I would have questions. I would go through them, and then they would deny what I read about the bad things. So if I had a message to people who are investigating of Islam and who are taking their time to read, and if they come across something that says that Islam is bad or something bad about the Prophet, if you feel that you don't have to go through it, you don't have to believe it, you would feel something, and you would directly go and explain it to yourself, because Islam is so simple and is so clear that you don't need bad words to scare you away. It won't scare you away, and by this aspect I kept investigating. And then when I decided I wanted it to be a Muslim, because I appreciated everything I saw in its history, in its culture, and its art, I told myself I want to be a Muslim. But for the aspect of how I had of my jobs and my activities in the cultural centers, I wasn't really acting in a simple way. Maybe I was directly involved in late night parties or going out with friends that would all maybe abuse the substance of alcohol. And me myself, I felt like I needed to stop this circle of abuse or alcohol, so I felt like I needed to move away from the city I was born. I felt after I finished university, I needed to move away and start anew and find another opportunity. So when I decided to move, I moved to the capital of Mexico. I went to Mexico City, and I established myself there to directly start this new aspect of becoming Muslim and learning what was to be Muslim and working a normal job. So in this aspect, I wanted to start some sort of new circle, not a new life, just a new circle. So the first thing I did in Mexico City was to go to the local mosque, the local educational center for Islam, and I took my Shahada, and this was in 2015, and I took my Shahada and I officially became Muslim. But before this, I would always refer to myself as a Muslim, even though I wasn't practicing, or even though I didn't knew the exact rules of Islam or the exact rules of the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before I took Shahada, I knew I had read the Quran, and the Quran had helped me in various aspects which were different than any other thing. For instance, I know the Quran, it's a direct thing from Allah, we know it, but when you go through something and you open the pages of the Quran, you firstly will reflect yourself, you will reflect your situation, and you will reflect your thoughts, or the Quran will help you guide through you. So in this way, I used to guide myself, or the help. I would take the help from this guidance by the Quran, and this is how I knew that it would change my way of directly handling my life. So this is why I knew I wanted to be Muslim. So when I took Shahada, I started learning what was to be a practicing Muslim. I started taking small classes from my brothers in the local mosque. They would teach me how to read the Quran in Arabic. They would teach me the rules of the Sunnah. And this was a very interesting process. I came to know Islam in a different form, to live Islam in myself and in the people around me. But still, it wasn't enough, because the city of Mexico has a small population of Muslims, and I didn't get to experience the full process of praying at the prescribed times, because if I was far away from the local mosque, I would feel I had to go to the mosque to pray, even though I knew you can pray anywhere. it's not a difficult thing to pray anywhere you are, even if you are sitting down in a public transportation, or if you are in a park or in a public space like a museum or something. But I always felt I had to be in the mosque, and by this case I was directly involved in the community of the Islamic Center. I was active in their information, and I was invited to take this this course of Islam, and to grow in the experience of Islam by coming to Istanbul. I was invited by the local community in Mexico. So I thought it was a great opportunity. I came to Istanbul last year, and this has changed completely my aspects or my views on what is to live Islam in a community, or in this case in a city or in a country or in a society itself. Islam has all the answers with the civil codes. It's totally different to any other religion, because we have a norm to ourselves and a norm to our brothers and sisters and to our community, because the Quran gives this direct instructions by God, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He lets us know by the messages of Rasulullah how to respect ourselves, how to respect our close relatives and our close friends and our people that we don't even know them, but we know we are all human. We are all from the same creation, and we are all certainly created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So of course there is a qadr, that Allah has the destiny for everybody, and that we don't know what the future, what tomorrow brings for us, but it comes to my heart and to my mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses the people that directly will take part of the tomorrow. It sounds like tomorrow comes naturally, but we are always taking steps that are going to lead us to another path, that if we stick by this course of worshiping Allah and to take Him as our guide, He will lead us to the straight path, and to the path which prevents you from falling out and from committing small crimes, small sins. Whether it be small or big, you have to really take in this help that you pray to our Creator to provide us. And since Islam solves the issue of how you individual will go through the world and go through the society you live, we reflect each other, and we become this society of brotherhood. Of course, we're all brothers, but in Islam, we reflect our society of brotherhood, and by teaching ourselves first by the guide of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in the message brought to us by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we tend to strengthen our will, to strengthen our nefs, to put together, to connect our mind and our hearts, so we can be our one single entity. Because one of the differences that I see of Islam and other religions is that it only promotes one aspect of humanity, because human beings are so complex, and that we cannot be defined. Even if we're trying to explain something, we have to go through a lot of subjects to just go through the same point. So human beings are so complex, and they're so diverse, and we are made of so many things, that I feel like every other religion focuses only on one or two, and Islam takes care of the whole aspect, and you have to take care of the whole aspect. So to go back to our topic of Islamic art, I feel like this aspect of Islamic art is the same reflection of the things I am mentioning as the mind and the heart, because it strikes you to what is beautiful. Every time you see something in Islamic art, it will generate a feeling that you know it's something beautiful, it's something made to the eye and to the heart. But at the same time, it has so many study, and it has so many aspects of design and intellect, that it goes even through various readings and aspects of how to view, how to appreciate this art. In one case, you can immediately distinguish that Islamic art, apart from being unique and beautiful, it has this structure which it uses geometry. It uses geometry in a sense that it is an homage. It is a direct response to what we view or to what we see in the nature and the creation of Allah. If you see a flower, if you see a detail on a rock, or even on the human skin, or on the fur of an animal, we will see that there are patterns and there are details that will guide you through the beauty of the Creator. The Creator is all aware and is all knowing, and when He creates something in symmetry and in direct flow and aspects of being subtle and simple and complex at the same time. So when we humans, we see this in the nature, we see this in the world, we want to thank Allah, we want to worship Allah in our own ways, and what do, we just take these patterns that we see in the nature and we try to convey them in two dimensions, which could be a paper, a piece of a rock or a wall, and we would, in this case in Islamic art, they would try to integrate the beauty of geometry and the complexity of geometry. So in this case, it puts together both things. It puts together the complexity of the human mind. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for the human being and for the nature itself. We are both creations, and by using this language of art, we tend to acknowledge and to worship our Creator at the same time. So it's something you will not find in another aspect of art. If you take this to the Western style of art, or the mainly Occidental style of art, you will find that the human is first. You would find that the human emotions or the human body or the human mind is first, and it doesn't acknowledge the Creator in a way, because we have so many movements in art, in the history of art, that you cannot say it completely takes aside the Creator. But for an instance, for a general aspect or for a general view, you would feel isolated in taking appreciation of Western art. It is the study of the human being, and by studying the human being, like I said before, we are so complex and so diverse. We can study the artistic aspects of the mind, to study the artistic aspect of the heart, to study the artistic aspects of our perception. So these are so many different things that we will have different art results. So in a way, these aspects of art in the Western societies are not equal to Islamic art. with the honest version of religion, which is Islam, which is the true aspect. Because even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told our messenger that he had completed the religion of man with Islam. So we know that Islam is the sum of every information in aspects of interior, exterior. We just have to take on balance, and we just have to take on the course of what we are, where we are, and where are we going, and to use both of them, to use the technologies we have come to discover, and to use the aspects of interior soul searching or gaps which are brought to us by religion. We tend to live a normal, simple life with religion, and by this aspect we can achieve a good messages of societies by merging the both. And this is how Islam has always lived. This is how Islam, it was a golden empire, a golden civilization, but it didn't expect this competition. But now it could reemerge again as a society, of a just society with our modern ways of life. For in this aspect of rich countries, they have all the things that they offer, all the things that society would need or would want, but the family structure doesn't work because it doesn't provide the moralistic aspects of a religion, or the substitute of feeling that you are living in a just society. If you take the case of an American family, you would see they have more than normal problems with their interior aspects. They have depressions, and they have violence, which doesn't make much sense, because they have these problems within their societies, and they try to fill it with different things. Other cultures or other Islamic countries, we tend to only strengthen one side, whether it be the industry, or whether it be the culture, or whether it be the religion. We have to take all of them together, and this is the only way to succeed. And we are seeing it now in Turkey. Turkey is growing very, very rapidly, because I think they are implementing these three things: this to embrace the culture, to embrace the religion, and to embrace the industry, the technology. So we are seeing Turkey in 20 years. It has grown very strong, and it could be for every other country in Africa, or in Latin America, or in Asia, and we can do it in this form. Turkey is the first country of Islam that I have been to. I feel very much free in Turkey. Turkey is a very much a good example of what Islam can be. I see it and I live it I am here in this year, and I see that even the Turk people, sometimes they have forgotten what their history of Islam is, and they look for the European culture, and they look for to be in this European way of life. But as some of them, they realize that it's not worth it. It's not as people think, because it's just a trick of leaving something. It won't gratify you, or it won't fill you in a spiritual side. You would just look at your surroundings of the historic mosques, or the historic teachers that have books in Turkish language and old Osmanli language, that they use the Arabic, they use the intentions of the soul, the heart, the mind, and the eyes to one aspect. So I think that every Islamic nation, and for instance in Turkey, they are growing strong because of this, and every other Islamic nation should use this and should unite as a different cultural background. For instance, you cannot say the same thing for Egypt, or for Morocco, or for Yemen, or for Afghanistan. They all have different cultural backgrounds, but they all had something great to offer in their cultural history. So if they just embrace these aspects and they unite their technology advances, we would succeed in the same path.